I'm Matt Bremer. I am a account technology strategist at Microsoft. That's a new role for me within the last 3 weeks. Basically what my job is now is to really kind of work with some very large enterprise customers, just a handful of them, and really help them kind of strategically leverage the Microsoft platform. It doesn't always necessarily include our solutions. I have to fit it into their topology and things like that. So I have a lot of discussions with customers about things like enterprise file sync and share and how to get control of that in the enterprise, and which is why we're investing so heavily in this technology. So I'm from St. Louis, which is practically in the middle of the United States. So right in what we call the heartland, if you will. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the U.S., but we're basically known for baseball and a monument called the Arch. But why should you listen to me on this? I kind of give you an idea of what my current role is at Microsoft, but my previous roles at Microsoft have been there for some time. If I speak badly about our products, my microchip starts buzzing in my head or something like that. I'm joking, but I was a consultant. I'm a recovering consultant and SharePoint developer. I started out doing that, so I have a lot of experience and probably went through a lot of pain that some of you have experienced as well over the years. And then about 5 years ago, I transitioned into what we call a technical solution professional, so basically a sales engineer. And what I did is I, again, worked with customers focused solely on SharePoint and Office 365. So I say that to you just to kind of color a little bit of why, I'm credible in this space a little bit, because I have the perspective of a consultant who actually implemented, and I have a lot of the strategic discussions that I have with customers today. And I'll be, pretty transparent about things that work really well for Office 365. I know particularly in this area of the world, privacy and things like that are a concern, and it tends to be a bit more challenging. So hopefully, we can kind of have a constructive dialogue on that, on why you possibly should embrace it. And I think this workload's a workload that makes the most sense for customers to kind of first go into the cloud, if you will. So instead of an agenda, I always like to have some objectives and takeaways. And when I demo, I want my customers to walk away saying, I got to get me some of that. They really put the clamps down on Microsoft speakers using any copyrighted image, so now I have to have some legalese here. But I'll go ahead and click on this. This is my favorite Dilbert cartoon. If it launches. There we go. Let me go ahead and exit out of that. And I like to do this to preface too, if I'm demoing live, not that this has ever happened to me. It's a technology demo. Software's not 100% complete. I've actually lived this in front of executives before, and where you're kind of dancing around some stuff. So my goal for you guys to leave here is to say you got to get me some of that. So how many of you used OneDrive for Business? You have experience with it? A few of you. Good. So I'll spend some time level setting, but I won't belabor the point. So I do work for Microsoft. So I've got to go ahead and get some cliches out of the way with PowerPoint, because I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that we created PowerPoint. And Scott Hanselman did this, and I like to kind of kick off presentations this way just to have a little bit of fun. So we've got to have some random smart art, some things like that, and some goofy animations. We got to have a architecture slide and, point out that this area here is probably the most important, but no one can see it in the room, right? Got to have some evocative stock art. And this one harkens back a little bit. How many of you were at SharePoint Evolution 2013? Only a few of you. Okay. Well, you remember Steve Smith kind of went through and kind of showed all the former SharePoint collaboration pictures and things like that over the years. That was kind of funny to see that from 2003, 2007, 2010. Anyone recognize that one? 2010, right? Team site. All right, and then just one more, just because this makes me laugh. So, because I do this constantly. So when I touch non-touch screens, right, and smear them all up. So, all right, enough of that. Got all that stuff out of the way. We'll dive right in. Maybe. See, I had one more joke and it didn't work. All right, here we go. All right, so key requirements for the enterprise file sync and share workload. That's a mouthful, right? But to most of you, It's just that sync and share. What you have right now is, this is something you use most likely in your, at home, in your personal lives. You use, a service like this to do this, whether it's iCloud or Box or Dropbox. And so a lot of customers and users are demanding this capability within their work environment. And so what's that created is kind of a IT nightmare. So how many of you are sort of IT pro, sort of admin people? Okay, good. How many of you are like business type people, user focused? Okay, so you kind of know this, this dichotomy there and this struggle with this. And this also is directly related to the whole bring your own trend that we have right now. People want to bring their iPads, or they want to bring their iPhones, or they want to bring their own laptop. And so giving access to this work product interspersed with your personal files is kind of a big challenge to be able to manage it appropriately and safely and things like that. So we have customers who basically just aren't addressing the problem and have people using all these free services everywhere. And so really our big investment is in OneDrive for Business is to provide an enterprise way to kind of do this. And the three tenets are anywhere, anytime access, so enabling mobility, seamless integration with familiar tools. This is a key one for us, I feel, over, in us being Microsoft, over the other solutions, in that it integrates directly with Office, which is what people want to use. And now we have Office on every platform, Office anywhere. So it really kind of provides a really great experience no matter what device you're using. And then enterprise-grade security, compliance, and IT control. So at the end of the day, we really need to be able to protect these assets if we're going to enable them on these devices, be able to secure them, be able to retrieve them if someone leaves. In this era of data leakage and things like that, there's always, every few weeks or months or whatever, you hear about some data breach, right? And so you want to be able to avoid that and protect your content as appropriate. So I was joking about the evocative full text or full slide pictures, but there's just a few of these, but I do think they make a good point. So again, anywhere in time access, real-time collaboration, enterprise grade. So we've got the whole OneDrive notion, right? But we have OneDrive Consumer and OneDrive for Business, and I do find it creates a little bit of confusion. Does it confuse anyone else? Okay, and so I kind of like to point it out. So I said one place for everything, but really two, I digress. And so we got OneDrive plus another drive still equals one, according to Microsoft. But think of it this way. You got OneDrive for Business and OneDrive for Pleasure. That's a silly attempt at humor on my part, but it's kind of a good way to think about it. This is SharePoint. This is a consumer service. But we're blurring these lines a little further, and I'll show the experience. And I think it's a positive thing. We are right now converging all the sync clients. So you will truly only have one OneDrive client. Try saying that fast. One OneDrive client. But you'll be able to add your business location and your consumer location to the same service. So it's still clear where it's separated. But again, this is SharePoint. And why that's important is it does not create another silo. You can access it through enterprise search. You can apply information rights management. You can apply information retention policy, records management, ECM capabilities on top of it that you're most likely doing in your business today. And so you're enabling your users, but you're kind of doing it sort of in that enterprise way that fits into your collaboration platform, which you're already leveraging. And so that's why I think it's a key differentiator. So hopefully that helps alleviate any confusion. I can tell you that this is a little inside information at Microsoft. OneDrive Consumer, or Pleasure, whatever you want to call it, OneDrive Consumer Engineering does own OneDrive for Business Engineering. And the reason I point that out is probably about a year or so ago, you might have heard people stating that there was difficulty with performance with the sync engine and things like that. It was valid. So that's when OneDrive Consumer took over the sync engine. We are getting rid of all the Groove underpinnings, which are still kind of used today. And we're also kind of, especially in Office 365, we're even going to use a different storage mechanism to allow bigger files. So very soon you're going to be able to have 10 gig files. Right now you're still limited to 2 gig like you would on any SharePoint sort of thing. And also you're currently somewhat limited by the file name restrictions on SharePoint. Those are going to be going away as well as we bring more of this technology in. So I say that just to say next-gen sync client is due this summer, and I think it's really going to make a major leap forward into the service as well. It's gotten a lot better, though, over the past year or so, and hopefully those of you with experience with it have seen that. those of you that haven't explored it yet, go ahead and give it a try because I think it'll be a really good use. I use it myself very heavily and across like 5 or 6 devices, and it works great for me. All right, so just a couple more and we'll just go into straight demo. Again, anytime, anywhere access. Right now you have 1 terabyte of storage. So a great way to think about in this workload here with OneDrive for Business is personal storage, right? So if users have local storage today or a file share or something like that, it's a great replacement for that. We are moving to unlimited, and that's coming shortly, and we truly do mean unlimited. So if you want to put 20 terabytes up there, I don't know who has that, but if you do, you can move it up there. PC, tablet, and phone, you know, this is a different Microsoft. We are on every platform. We're embracing every platform. That's a very good thing in my opinion. It's not just a Windows first. Windows or Mac, you're seeing with Office 2016 now, the Office for Mac, you know, like even now, it's a couple years behind what Office 2013 was, right? Now they're going to be at the same cadence. They're going to be released at the same time. Easy access across computers and offline access for those times, when, those rare times anymore, right? It's interesting when you don't have connectivity any longer. It is getting more rare. About the only, I used to say the airplane was the only place, but even on my international flight over now, I had the Wi-Fi the entire time. I mean, how cool is that? So even that, you can't escape really. I kind of show this again, device support. How many of you are aware of this, of how ubiquitous our apps are now? I mean, we're releasing stuff all the time, and we're making investments on all these platforms. And there's even a couple of recent examples. Office 365 Video and Delve both released apps last week. They did not release for Windows Phone. They released for Android and iOS. So, and I'll be perfectly transparent, there's a lot of our apps that work a lot better on iOS and Android than they do on Windows Phone. So, and you know, as I sit here with my iPhone 6 too. So you're starting to see more and more of this in Redmond. I bring this point out though because, you know, I think people still have that notion that we're Windows first and things like that. We of course want to advantage our platform, right? And I think Windows 10 is going to bring some very interesting things, particularly in this space with mobile device management and things like that. But we want our services and apps to be where users are. And a lot of people are on iOS and Android, and so you're seeing a lot of investment there. Real-time collaboration. This is a pretty important one, and I'll show this in the demo with co-authoring and versioning. And the Office Online apps, they've really matured, and they're very robust. In fact, I probably use the Office Online apps more so than the client when I'm on the go for basic editing. You can't do like Power Pivot, you know, things in Excel and whatnot. You can consume them, you just can't, you know, work with a lot of data. But if you're on the fly basic editing, you got to work with a team of people. The online apps are a great thing to do. And also integrated social conversations with Yammer to be able to have a context to what, you know, the content was in the app and why it was put there and why it was done a certain way. And then search and discovery as well for compliance and usability. And then we've got, you know, cost effect or enterprise grade. So built-in security. And I'm gonna do 2 slides on security and trust. I like to call it trust because, again, I realize privacy is a big deal, particularly in this area of the world. And but we are really sort of investing in this. And we even announced just yesterday, I don't know if anybody caught it because we're all kind of busy and we're behind, but yesterday we announced customer Lockbox, where you can actually bring your own encryption keys now for your content. And we're doing this very deliberately because Microsoft considers itself a data custodian, not a data owner. You own your data. And now we're going to provide you the keys so that only you have the keys to be able to access that data, to further kind of assure you. We are also, our service was the first one to have ISO 27001 2018, I believe, or is it ISO 27018, that's what it is. It's the strictest cloud privacy certification that you can have, and we're the only service currently that has it. And so that was a big deal. And we also have EU model clauses, so you can actually adhere to safe harbor laws even if your data is in, say, another data center outside of the European Union or things like that. We have data centers in Dublin and Amsterdam, and we're building more all the time. But there's an attestation there that says it's okay even if it goes because we meet so many controls to do that. And so this is kind of our threat posture. It's a really bad animation, but he's got a scary bandit mask on there, you know, the outside threat. So we have the secure design lifecycle for the products themselves. It's baked in. Protections against attacks. This is a unique one here. We're in an assumed breach posture at all times. And so I think this is probably the best job at Microsoft. We have a red team and a blue team. The blue team constantly tries to penetrate our network, and the red team's there to stop them. And they war game constantly. They don't know what's going on. And then they review what happened, and we constantly patch. And that is actually going on. And I think it's a key reason why, I gotta knock on wood and throw salt on my shoulder and everything, a key reason why we've been able to avoid any sort of major breach thus far. We really take it seriously, and we're constantly doing it. They actually take tools that bad actors will use and reverse engineer them so they can use a lot of the same techniques. And it's really made the service robust. And then finally, we're giving you the customer controls. So data loss prevention is now in OneDrive for Business and SharePoint. That's key, because you're not relying on your users to make the right decision. It's going to inspect the content, know what kind of content it is, and then it's going to act. And so either block it being shared, and you have the ability to configure this, or it'll put a rights management policy on it and encrypt it. So you have some ways to kind of, be proactive and prevent things. And we just really released a lot of robust auditing on these as well. So now you can do a lot of auditing on views on when something's synced to an endpoint, or who viewed something, or who opened something. You have a lot of auditing capabilities now with OneDrive for Business. And just one more on the security of Office 365 as a whole in the cloud. But again, defense in depth with the layers, physical security. This stuff here is table stakes, right? You would expect that anywhere. Firewalls, intrusion detection. This is a little interesting here in that we actually have a variety. People always want to know what engines, but we map to SOC Type 2, SOC 16 Type 2 controls, as well as ISO 27001. We actually use a variety of malware, patch, and configuration management. In your SLA that we contractually obligated, we actually state that we'll block 99.5% of everything. Even unknown threats, we claim we'll get 99% of them or something like that. The application one's interesting. I mentioned before the customer lockbox, where you're going to be able to bring your own keys. We have a complete access control system for people on the back end where no one has standing access to any of the data anywhere. And furthermore, just because of the way the data works, we have file level encryption in SharePoint at rest. So even when you upload something to like OneDrive for Business, the file is shredded. I hate saying that in a SharePoint room because that means something with shredded storage, but so we call it file. It actually shreds it up into little chunks, if you will, and then each one of those is individually encrypted. So the point I'm trying to make there is you can't get the whole picture even if you were to physically access something. You'd have to piece it all together, and it would take a lot of time. And hopefully enough time with the encryption and things like that that it's just impossible. But also any sort of back-end access, no standing access. They have to request for this is going to take me 15 minutes. They're only going to get 15 minutes, and that's going to be completely logged, and you can audit that, and things like that. And then I mentioned before our assumed breach. So if you're thinking about the cloud, we have a trust center for Office 365. Go check it out. There's a lot of great content on there. Have a talk with your local Microsoft account team. I'm sure they'd have this conversation with you. I do it all the time. And it's an interesting conversation. I think you'll find that we're doing things as well, and in some cases better than you're doing today in your own data centers. And just to kind of give you that trust and confidence, we really want you to think about it as an extension of your own data center. And so that's pretty much it for PowerPoint. Thanks for indulging me. And let's get into the demo a little bit, because I think that's when a lot of this makes sense. Any questions so far? How late was everyone at the party? Was anyone there past midnight? I was. A few of you? Okay. Some of you were smarter than the others. All right. So let's start out here. So this is OneDrive for Business. Again, SharePoint. A couple things I like to orient to. You can kind of see it over there. Some key things here along the left. You got documents, you got recent, views. Integrates with Delve too. So OneDrive for Business does give signal to Office Graph if you've attended any sessions on that. So it really can do a lot of neat things there. I've got my shared with me view. This is important because, say I get an email, someone shared something with me, I can just go here and find it again. Any documents I'm following. So you had that notion before with on-prem with like the news feed or something like that, and you would follow a document. That lists my documents I'm following. One interesting thing that's currently only available in the Office 365 view is this site folders. And so these are all the sites that I have access to or someone shared with me. And so I can immediately, just within one click, get to where I need to go. And then another important one here is the recycle bin, obviously, so I can restore my own files just like you would any other time. I have versioning turned on here, so even when we're co-authoring or when I'm syncing or something like that, it'll automatically version. There's no check-in, check-out kind of process. It's very seamless and very frictionless, and that's what you really want to have when people are using it. And so how many of you have experience with SharePoint 2013? Most of you? 2010? Okay, so a lot of you are rooted in 2010. Anyone older than that? 2007? There we go. You're still using it today, 2007? Okay, that's not that uncommon. What about 2003? Anybody? Got one back there. All right, I'm really going to reach now. Any Project Tahoe users? No? All right, cool. That would have been really shocking, but that's pretty good. So for you 2013 people, this will be kind of old hat, but one thing I like to show here is, you know how in 2010 and 2007, it can be kind of a multi-step process to get a document into a library. So all you got to do now is just drag it in there, and it goes ahead and it uploads it. That's great. I still have to go to the browser to do that, right? That's probably not, that's what you don't want. That's not very frictionless. And so the sync client actually integrates directly into the Explorer view, and it's here in my favorites, and you see I've got little check marks here letting me know that everything's synced okay. And it'll also show when I'm syncing something. So let's just say I went ahead and created a document here. Let's take this one, and I'm going to copy it. And I could save this directly from Office as well. And I'm going to paste it in there. And here in a second, it should give me my little sync indicator. There we go. You see that there? And then it's synced up. And so if I go back to my browser, and I hit refresh, there it is. It'll show up there. And so it was asynchronous. I didn't have to actively do anything. And so if I'm in Office, that's a location directly in Office 2013, and I can just save things there. I actually have customers redirect their My Sites, their My Documents to the sync folder, so it automatically goes up, and it's very frictionless. And it's pretty quick, too. So, you're still subject to the 2 GB limit, but most collaboration documents are all in the back. Yeah, in the back.
What's the near future? Tell me that. What's the near future sync story? Being able to control which documents you sync down with
Yeah.
desktop, because we obviously don't have
Right. You can have it in the cloud, but you don't have it on your machine. And a lot of us are carrying, these type of devices with limited storage, or Surface Pro 3 or something like that. It's a great question. Can everyone hear the questions okay? Do you need me to repeat them? Okay. So he was asking, what is the near-term story for sync storage? I kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier. We are converging. We're getting rid of the Groove underpinnings. And so we're going to the OneDrive Consumer sync, which has selective sync in it, and you're going to be able to do that. And the time frame for that is this summer. So I totally agree with you. And right now, too, I think we have a 20,000 item sync limit. So to your point, if I copy everything up, do I want it to come down? That will go away also, but you're going to be able to selectively, which ones do I want offline? You'll have like that pointer like you have. So if you want to know the future, look at how OneDrive Consumer works today, and it's going to be very analogous to that. Does that help?
Yeah, that's what customers will be at.
Absolutely.
I also asked about the mapping network drive.
Sure. Are you asking in the context of, say, a Citrix environment, or just normal? Yeah. It's a broader topic than you think, though. Come up after and let's discuss it, because I kind of want to stay focused on sort of the end user aspect of this. But yeah, we can definitely talk about that. All right. So now that I got some files in there, you still, though, even with this file sync and share notion, I probably know the answer to this before I ask it. How do your users share files today? Do they do it through email attachments? Right? They probably are in Outlook. Is that common? I'm getting some nods. Right. Most people still collaborate in email. But that introduces all sorts of problems, right? Even if you have a SharePoint environment today, most people probably still use email, right? And then they'll upload something later. You don't have versioning. You don't know who has the latest version. It replicates storage. So if you send that to 20 people, you've got it 20 times in your Exchange environment. And if it's a fairly big document, you are limited sometimes in the attachment size that you can send. And so there's lots of things there. So we've even kind of taken a stab at addressing that with OneDrive for Business. So if you go to Outlook, and this is probably one of my favorite features because this works for external people as well. I'm going to do a new message, and I'm going to go to this Insert menu. And notice there, I have attachments or OneDrive files in the upper right. If I click on that, so now it's kind of giving me an overview. Attachments just got better with OneDrive for Business. It gives me my recent files that I've been working on recently. It'll give me a view of my files. It'll also give me the files that have been shared with me. And then I could also incorporate files from my Office 365 groups as well, or on my computer. Now, what's interesting about this is, say I've got a document on my computer that I haven't uploaded to OneDrive for Business yet. I'm going to go ahead and select that. That's for my computer. And I'm going to say Upload and Share with OneDrive. It's uploading it to OneDrive right now. It's syncing it for me. The other cool thing it's doing is down here it says recipients can edit. I am going to actually control permissions and sharing just by who's on the to line. So I'm going to say Alex, if I can type here. And let's do Zarinka. Never forget that name. So now those users can edit this file once it's up there, and they will get an email. And their email, even though it looks like an attachment, it's just a link to the file. And so they'll open it in OneDrive for Business, and they can go and collaborate. And so I think this is a pretty useful thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this off. And I could also, conversely, if I wanted to change the permissions, I can just change it to view. So what we tried to do with sharing, and this was introduced with 2013, but it's really exemplified, I think, in OneDrive for Business, is it's, we keep things simple. It's can view or can edit, just like you would in any sort of consumer service. And it's not, I have to add someone to a visitors group or an owners group or a members group or something like that. And so, and I can do it to apply to every attach. In this case, I'm going to leave edit, click OK. All I do is hit send. I've shared my file and it's uploaded to OneDrive. Yes?
Is that available in the Outlook client as well?
It is. It's a great question. It's currently only, so the question was, is it only in the Outlook Web Access client? The answer is yes for right now. I'm confident it'll be there in the 2016 Outlook client, and we'll bring that forward. So, yeah, right now that's the gap. To me, though, that doesn't really, it's not as, it doesn't create as much friction as you think it would, or a barrier, just because of the app launcher now. I know if I want to do that, I just go to Mail, and I just do it from right here. And I find that extremely handy when I share things with people outside of my organization, because it automatically will email them the invitation and the link and everything, and it's just done like I would do normally. All right, so let's go back to OneDrive. And so now we'll go through kind of a co-authoring exercise. And I think this is actually where the real power of the online apps really lights up. And so I want to go ahead and work on this file. And notice here, I got some indicators under the sharing column, and it tells me who things are shared with. So like here, it says only me, and that's by default. I have a shared with everyone folder. You're familiar with that in your My Sites today, but you can, and it still does that, but that's sort of your public. And then here's the email attachments folder that I have there, and notice I let it talk long enough, it went ahead and uploaded the one from my email there, so I just like showing that. And the sharing dialog show those people. So I'm going to go back to the document I want to co-author on here, and which is this one. And I'm going to go ahead and do a sharing exercise. There's that working on it again. That's why I like to show it. So it gives me a list of that, the people. I can edit their permissions here. I can do a get a link. So this is something you can't do on-prem. I can create a view-only link or an edit link. And then anyone with that link can edit or view. So you can do this kind of anonymously if you want. The IT admins in the room are probably like, holy cows, how do I turn that off? You can control that, whether or not they can do that. You can also control whether or not something can be shared with someone external. But hopefully, you've trained your users, they're maybe not doing sensitive content within their personal storage anyway. Most organizations would have that policy. And so this is a really empowering feature because, again, you could share it with someone external. You don't have to worry about that person signing in. You don't have to worry about what version of Office they have. They can do everything kind of online. If you want to take it a step further, you could have RMS applied that would prevent someone, say, from downloading the file or printing it or emailing it or whatever the case may be. And RMS is Rights Management Server. Sorry, I get into acronym speak. We have web pages inside Microsoft that define all the acronyms because sometimes they mean more than one thing. But so this is pretty neat. And those are two features that you don't have with on-prem, OneDrive for Business on-prem. You have the ability to do what we call guest links, which are these, and also external sharing by default. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and share this. So I'm going to share with Alex, and I get the type head, just like you'd expect. And this one is when it gets interesting, is I'm going to add my external person. I've shared with myself before, obviously, but that's why I'm in the type head, and then it gives me a little notification there that I'm outside of my organization. And so it's kind of giving those policy tips like you see in like Outlook and things like that. And I'm going to go ahead and do can edit, and I'm going to require sign in. And I'll show why that's important in a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and click share. So easy. Let me know that it shared with Alex. If I fire up Outlook, it should have also all right, well, that's connected all. There we go. And it sent me an email. It sent an email to Alex and my external user, but it CC'd me as the document owner saying, hey, Gar shared this file with you. Here's where it is, and to let me know that. We could also start an email thread on here if we wanted to or something like that, but that's kind of handy. Just, it was successful. The other interesting thing about this, too, it's not so important for Alex because he's an internal user, but this invite that my external user is going to get, they can't just forward that to someone else. So this is a case where I'm not using a guest link and I required sign-in. They have to authenticate with that email address via a Microsoft account. Or they have to be an existing Office 365 user, and the other option is they could be an Azure Active Directory user. So you have three options. The easiest one is if they associate that email address with a Microsoft account, because then you're not controlling those credentials. Does that make sense? We might eventually open up other social authentication options, but that's the current state of affairs today. So if they're already an Office 365 user, they just enter their org ID and they go. I do this with customers all the time, and it works great. If you want the control, you could stand up an Azure AD. It's free. Instance directory, and you could control your users there and have complex passwords for your external people. That's still better than having them in your on-prem AD or having some kind of forms-based database somewhere that you have to manage and things like that, because it enables self-service password reset and whatnot. So being able to share external, I think, is really key. And the other great thing about that is, too, I mentioned before, even previously when you use like Rights Management Server or something like that, you didn't necessarily have that policy follow the document when you went outside. And with this, you do. It follows it. So hopefully now I've talked long enough to where, and it is good. So now I got my invite as an external user. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. This is where it's going to get a little wild. I'm going to have three personas going at once here. So it's asking me for my Office 365 account. I'm not an Office 365 user, so I'm just going to go ahead and enter my at live.com that it was sent to. It's going to pick that up, and it's going to redirect to the federated identity of it being a Microsoft account. Because I was logged into Outlook.com, it went ahead and took that token, and it let me in. Now, what's cool about this is I shared that document with this external user, but if I start clicking around and I know a little bit about SharePoint, I still only have access to that document, and they're my site. You know, before, if you shared like your site, necessarily you might have opened up more than you wanted to. In this case, it's just that item, so it's pretty safe and controlled. I'm going to go ahead and edit this document online. And I'm going to put that user over there on the right. I'm going to bring Garth up, my star of the show. He's the boss. I'm going to go ahead and edit as well. And here in just a moment, I should get an alert telling me there are other people in here editing. There we go. So let me know that the external user, Matt Bremer, is editing this document. And hopefully here in just a moment, I will get, there we go, visual representations of those users. So if I hover over this here, Garth's seeing Matt, Matt's seeing Garth, and then let's add our internal user onto here as well. So I'm going to go to Shared with Me view. Let me expand him while I'm working with him. There's the document I want to work on, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm deliberately doing this in Chrome. Again, this is a new Microsoft, so we embrace standards for our websites now. And a lot of this is HTML5 based. It also will work great on a mobile browser, on like an iPad or a tablet. Now that we have Office everywhere, I'd say it's dubious whether or not you'd want to go ahead and do the web experience, but you could. And so now Alex is also seeing Garth, and in a second he should see Matt as well. And it does tell me there are 2 other people editing online to let me know. I'm sorry? I think it's like, on the online one, I'm not sure if there is. It used to be like 50 or something like that. But if you think about it, do you want 50 people in a Word doc? So, and I'll show why you might not want to do that. But I've never run into it with like any kind of team I've been doing it on. The most common one we do this on is like an RFP response or something like that. And you can do this across all the apps. You can do it in PowerPoint, Excel, Word, OneNote. They all work somewhat different. Excel locks at the cell level. Word tries to lock at the place you're in the document, and PowerPoint locks at the slide. So it's kind of intuitive as to what's going on. All right, so I got 3 people in this document. The first thing I'm going to do as Alex here is I want to add my name to it because I want credit. And notice it lets Garth see where I'm at. So if I scroll down over here, Garth will see Alex is right there. And I'm going to add my name. So, and notice on the left, I didn't have to sync. I didn't have to do anything in real time. It just shows the changes. So I'm seeing the changes in real time. If I go to my external user, hey, I'm the customer. I'm more important than all you internal people. I really want credit. So the external user works just like the internal user there. Same experience, all using Word Online, and the updates, automatically refresh in there. So there's a lot of power there with the co-authoring and things like that. So let's continue this scenario further. Any questions on co-authoring before I move on?
What about undo? Can I undo somebody else?
Right, because of the way it's set up right now, you would have to. It's the last one in. The last one wins. It's funny when I do this for customers, and we have something called a customer immersion experience, and I'll have like 10 people in there, right? And they'll do that to each other. It's not as huge a bigger problem as you think, and I don't run into it. I know it seems silly, but you could, of course, go with traditional merge changes and things like that if you wanted to do that. But for this ad hoc collaboration, I find this works really well. I definitely could though, because look, I mean, if I'm Garth and I say no way you're not going to be on there, I can remove it. I just can't do like Control-Z or something like that, which I think is what you were asking about.
It's kind of awkward questions we get from our
Sure.
clients.
Yeah. What's the modality they're used to? And this is a new modality. And so, I don't know if co-authoring is right for every piece of content. You know, there are certain pieces of content that would make a ton of sense, and so I think it works out very well to do that. All right, so the next part of the scenario here is I'm Garth, and I'm going to go to a meeting. And with that, I really don't want to take my laptop. So I'm going to leave the document, and I'm going to flip over my little alerts there. So if I go, I like showing this just to show how many apps we actually have on iOS now. Basically everything I need to kind of do my job, even an Office 365 admin app. But what I want to do is I want to launch the OneDrive Converge client, and I'm going to continue working on this document with Alex because, you know, who doesn't multitask in a meeting, right? And so I'm going to this meeting that I don't really need to pay a lot of attention to. A couple things I want to take note of here. Notice that as soon as I opened it, the files that I added, the Hello World 2, the Hi World 2, those are automatically there. They've already synced. Same as the email one. It all went there. I didn't have to do anything. It was frictionless, right? And this is the converged client. And so I can add, I've got my organization account there, and I could also add my OneDrive consumer area there as well. So in this case, I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to click on it. It automatically opens up into Office for me, which I am also signed in with my organizational account ID, and it will by default wire up my OneDrive for Business as a location. And so again, it's kind of seamless. How many of you have used Office Anywhere on Android or iOS? A few of you. If you haven't yet, download it. It's free. You can use it fully capable for consumer. It's really brilliant. You see the richness of the document. I've even got the notes for the reviews and track changes on here. The fidelity of the tables is maintained. It's a really great experience. And it's telling me now too that, you know, it's on the server. And so if I go ahead and click edit here, and it's optimized for touch, so it's not like a mouse sort of experience brought to touch. It was really built to be a native app. Within there, it is telling me that 3 authors are there, so you can see that we're still doing things. I can also control, I could add other sharing. I could, you know, email it again. I could do things like that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead. I'm the boss, and so I don't want anyone else to get credit. So we're going to go ahead and back those changes out. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to force a save. You shouldn't have to do that because auto-save's on, but I just want to make sure. And so I force a save. And so from there, you know, as they make changes, they'll come into here. It's a pretty good experience. If I go back to the OneDrive, you know, app, a couple things to kind of orient you to. We have the recent view. So again, it kind of brought that forward from what I showed you earlier. And then I also have the shared with me, so I can see the documents that are shared with me otherwise. These could be on a team site, whatever the case may be, other things like that. So that's the experience on like an iPad, and it's very similar on an Android. We're really kind of making the mobile experience to be ubiquitous across devices. It's pretty good. I really just travel sometimes with just an iPad, and I'm pretty productive. I don't know that I could have said that even 6 to 8 months ago, but it really is, and it's a great experience. And Office 365 is really what makes it possible because I can log in and connect to everything anywhere on any device, and to do that. So I'm going to flip back over now. That's just a brief intro there. Again, I encourage you to go download the apps and kind of experience them for yourself. All right. So now that I'm back into here, let's go ahead and make sure that the changes showed up. So I'm going to flip back over to, let's go to Alex. Now see, it didn't do it. If the demo had worked, you would see something here, here, and here. So I must have cut off the save. Let me go ahead and try that again. Okay. The other thing I want to kind of orient to in OneDrive for Business real quick. if I go back here, is Smart Search. And so with Smart Search here, I have a search dialog. Obviously, you have an Enterprise Search Center as well. But let's say I wanted to, start looking for a document. If I start doing marketing, I get searches from my documents, and it lets me know that here. And I can go ahead and share them from here, and I get a preview too. But it also starts going through on things that are shared on team sites or things that I have rights to within team sites. So this is the entire corpus. So it's bringing the search results back for me right here in my OneDrive. And so if I know there's a template somewhere or something like that, I can search for it, bring it up, put it in my OneDrive for Business, and I'm on my way. I don't have to go to the intranet. I don't have to go to another place. And so Smart Search is a really great tool to be able to do that. And then the other thing I find a lot of value in is, and I kind of hinted on it, if I go back into the document itself, there we go. Now my changes from the iPad persisted. So I just didn't give it enough time. And it looks like I've got A/B variant testing going on. So I'll go over to Alex, and there's Alex's view. So the changes from the iPad did persist. I bring up Yammer Conversations. It's a little flyout menu on the right. And these follow the document. And so now we can have a conversation about this document and have a context to it that sort of work like a network notion. And it's right there in the document pane. So like today, maybe people do notes in Word or something like that. The nice thing about this is if you go ahead and you post this to Yammer and you share it on Yammer, it'll be in the OneDrive for Business as the source of the truth. But then you'll have a context to how the content came about. And that enables someone to come back later on a document and get up to speed, right, on certain versions of why things were done. And there's a lot of sort of domain knowledge within there. And that's the whole notion of enterprise social. So we're integrating that directly into the product as well to be able to do that. And then finally, the last thing that I like to show, I'm in as Alex, let me go in back as Garth. It gets a little confusing for me too. I mentioned before that I had versioning on, and so when we were working with that document, I just select it. We didn't do check in, check out. I just go to version history. Each one is giving me all the different versions. You even see, the external user is in there as well on the different versions. And I can then roll back. So there's another way you could undo. You could roll back to a previous version since you had that on, and it'll go ahead and just keep iterating on that. OneDrive for Business, when it's syncing to, only syncs deltas. So it's actually fairly efficient on that. Any questions on a demo before we move on? We're coming up on time, so I kind of want to close out a little bit. All right. Silence is acceptance. So just tie off with a few slides. One of the capabilities we just started rolling out is we are bringing mobile device management built into Office 365. This is especially important with the OneDrive for Business workload because you want to be able to have control of those assets. So it's great, right? I can go to grandma's computer and I can sync some work documents. Well, that's probably not great from an IT control perspective, right? So if that user leaves, grandma might have some trade secrets on there and start posting them on Twitter or whatever the case may be, right? It's a weird example, but that's what we're looking at. It's a fine line because now you're enabling access anywhere on any type of device that'll have assets on it. So what do you do about that? So built in, we have this notion of conditional access, device management, and selective wipe. You're going to get that with the platform. It does require the Intune agent. So if you're using, a competitive solution like AirWatch or Mobile Iron or Good, I don't know are those all popular here? Is everybody using? Does anyone know? All right. You can't use that with this. That's the only point I wanted to make. And then also, if you were to go on to full Intune, you can actually manage the Office apps as well. But you can do the basics of this file sync and share. And the conditional access is really key because what it does is it actually has someone, say you go and you got a new iPad and you want to hook up to work. You start and you fire up the app and you sign in. It's going to look at your device, and it's going to say, is it jailbroken? Is encryption turned on? Do they have a passcode? Think like it is today when you would connect to Exchange with like an active sync client. It's going to go ahead and it's going to go through and evaluate, can you be trusted? Are you, do you have what you need to be able to let us get those assets back and control them? And so you go through and you enroll it for sort of light management. It doesn't become a domain asset then, but it just says, hey, we've got control of these documents then. And then here's how you define the policies. You go through, you can require a password. You can say, after 10 invalid tries, we're going to wipe it. And it's just going to wipe the data, the work data. It's not going to wipe the personal data. So you have selective wipe on there as well. And you got some device reporting. This is coming with the Compliance Center that's rolling out currently. If you're a first release customer with Office 365, you might start seeing this already. I have it in my tenant. I mentioned before selective wipe. So you can have that mix of personal and work assets and you won't affect it. That's key. And then I had this notion of the mobile application management. This is not baked into Office 365. This would require what we call Enterprise Mobility Suite or an Intune subscription. The reason it's important is you can manage the apps then. You can actually control whether or not they can copy, cut, and paste on these mobile devices. You can define that users can't save to like a Dropbox location or a non-authorized location. They can only say, save to say OneDrive for Business and things like that. And you can actually have sort of this notion of like a corporate app store, if you will. It works seamlessly with the public apps, so it's not like a user has to like VPN and go to something different. But it allows them to kind of be redirected to then download the managed app, if you will. So it's pretty frictionless, and it's worth exploring if you want to control it a little bit further. And then here's just some additional Intune capabilities. The only reason, I don't want to make this salesy, but I bring this up. So the mobile device management stuff works great for mobile devices, right? iOS, Android. What about PCs? People still have laptops. People have MacBooks. So we're getting a story together there. With Windows 10, you're actually going to be able to do containerization. So with OneDrive for Business, it'll be in an encrypted container. And then I'm going to be able to wipe that on a PC. There's not much out there that does that today well. And we're going to do it on a Mac too. So it's not going to be mobile device management, it's going to be device management. So as you enable these workloads, you're going to have full control over the assets, and we're building them into the service. That MDM capability now, if you're an Office 365 subscriber with an eSKU, you're going to go ahead and get it. And you don't have to do anything else. You just have to configure it. And we have about 5 minutes for questions, but I'll stay up here as long as anybody wants. Thank you all for joining me the earliest session after the party. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you found this valuable. Thank you.